Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon, everyone. How are you guys doing? Welcome, welcome, welcome. I hope that 30 seconds was maybe enough to get some of you all into the live. I'm still actually gonna give you guys some extra time to actually join. Now, I have a couple things that I need to mention, right? So, one, I am unable to always see everybody's comments. And with that being said, if it is that you are commenting, I honestly may not see it because of the fact that, excuse me, just how the comments pane comes up here. So I'm just going to go straight through. I will catch your comments after. I totally appreciate the fact that you would be commenting on the respective platforms, whether it is on Facebook, it is on LinkedIn, and well, of course, I'm also streaming on YouTube. But I know that we have maybe one or two people on Facebook and stuff right now. So let's get into it a little bit, right? So today's live, I'm actually discussing the creation of a structured sales day. And the reason why I felt that it was important for me to do this is because I've had too many instances of, one, being a sales professional myself, and then also being a sales manager, and then now coming into the corporate space where I'm actually providing services and consultations, where I'm seeing the same things happening, where a lot of sales reps don't always have a very structured sales day. And that in itself is a challenge, right? Because the structure of your day is going to really determine your level of productivity. And of course, your level of productivity is going to translate in terms of those things like your meetings and your demos and your discovery calls and your negotiations and of course your commitments with your customers. And at the end of the day, your close rates, right? So having structure in the day is important. Now, I'll kind of go back and say something. I remember there was a manager at one time with David Ramsaran, right? He had actually introduced the whole terminology of structured workday. It may not have been his genuine idea, but at the end of the day, he actually brought it forward to say, okay, structured workday is something that we want to start having. And we did actually get some pushback from the team because of the fact that it was new, the concept, and now you're bringing some regimen into the entire thing, right? So with that, I actually saw the importance of it because of the fact that there were some productivity gaps, not just with myself sometimes, but also as it related to the team. And we all want to get better at what we do. However, we all try to do that by winging it. We don't have an actual structure in terms of how we go about doing certain things. And so my first point in this would be that we need to have something called a structured work day. That could be a series of things that we do every week or every day in the week or every other day as it relates to, whether it's prospecting or follow up on calls or sending out quotations or just having meetings with your managers or your respective clients. But once you have a structure like that, it's going to give you some idea or perspective as to where are you, like what are the things I need to do. You're really sort of building routine, and that routine tends to build muscle, and that muscle would be muscle memory, or it could just be your cadence in terms of you just become stronger at doing this. So that is an extremely important component in terms of having success in sales. So I'm going to give you guys a couple of ideas as to some of the things that I would have experienced. I'm switching back and forth in between tabs. I'm using one screen today. So just excuse me if my eyes, or we have a little delay in a couple of areas. All right, so let's go. So there has been a report that comes out that says, and this comes from Inside Sales, that a large percentage of a salesperson's workday has no structure in it, right? No structure in it whatsoever. And we sometimes burn a lot of time doing a number of different things. Now, before I saw this, if I heard about it from before, I would have said yes, right? The thing is that what compounded it for me is that while working with sales professionals, I've had sales professionals say stuff like this to me, right? I've had professionals say stuff like, Lyndon boy, sometimes I am just not sure exactly as to where my day should start, right? And by that, just excuse the nice there people, because I have one or two folks just walking through. So by saying that, I mean that without the right structure in her day, because this was a female sales professional mentioning this to me, right? She sometimes felt that she was kind of, you're like a headless chicken. You're not sure what you're supposed to do now and what's supposed to happen next and that kind of stuff, right? So again, structure in your day. So this is her saying this to me. So one of the first things that we started to do, I started to look at, just excuse again the little noise passing, right? Yeah, so one of the first things that I started to look at was, what does your day entail? Like, what are some of the things that you are accountable for at the end of the month? And then from there, what are some of the things that you have to do towards achieving the things that you are accountable for at the end of the month? Again, we have to start looking at what are your roles and responsibilities at the end of the month, and then how do we actually now work that backwards, right? So if any of you all have ever experienced this, then you all would understand exactly what I'm saying here, right? No lie. On average, though, if it is that we're just taking a very direct look at this, on average, we'll be able to say that an ideal day of a sales professional is supposed to be one where you're out there and you're always prospecting. Yeah? Okay, cool. And then, of course, you're having all of these meetings. And then, of course, you're having all of these closes, as I really say, just closing a number of customers. And then, of course, you're submitting on your admin work. Okay, so then that would be an ideal scenario, right? But really and truly, that is not always the ideal scenario, because the average day of a salesperson is filled with so many different things, right? We have to bring in the revenue. We know that. We have to have meetings with the sales managers. We have to have client meetings. We have to do demos at some point in time. We have admin work to do, phone calls to make, prospecting, yada, yada, yada. And it just gets built up and built up to the point where a lot of our time is lost here, right? To the point where sometimes these two activities take up the most of our time as sales professionals. Even as entrepreneurs, we get stuck behind the email, right? We have to send this email. And by default, the thing that actually now helps us really, really build on our skills, which is like things like prospecting and stuff like that, we lose on those things, right? Because in many instances, I have found that sales professionals sometimes tend to focus on the emails, and then, of course, they default by the admin work. Can't afford to do that. Why? Because of the fact that those are sometimes a small component, right? They're small, and the weight of the value of those exercises are small as it relates to what is it that we need to be doing towards achieving our goals, right? So again, paying attention as to what are your overall objectives is extremely important. So here we have, right, 4 tips to help you guys have a productive sales day. And again, spinning this also from the standpoint of entrepreneurs as well, right? Let's always look at what is it that you're responsible for, like what are your main goals, and then how do you now work that backwards. Even when it comes to breaking down a sheet or a list to say, okay, we need to be doing XYZ, and then break that down into daily, weekly, monthly tasks, right? So let's look at these 4. The first thing is that we need to have a plan, and our managers are supposed to help us with that plan. This plan is extremely important towards our success. So we need to have an understanding as to how do we plan our week, and then what are we using to help build that into our framework so that we can have consistent activity, right? Sales sometimes can be a very repetitious thing. I mean, I always like to say repetition creates perfection. And of course, you never have anything that's perfect. But again, we go about where you start building that muscle, you start building that cadence, you get stronger in certain activities. But you need to have a plan as to what is your routine. And then sometimes too, when you're putting your plan together, you on your own get to identify as to what are some of the things that are sucking up all of my energy, my good sales time, in terms of what is taken away from me creating content? What is taken away from me prospecting? What is taken away from me following up with these customers? Am I afraid to follow up with the customers? All right. And you need to have a balance too, right? Because if you know that you want to do more inbound. That means that you want to start putting more content on, that's fine. But if you know you need to have a balance of the two, inbound and outbound, then you can't just be doing inbound only, or you can't just be doing outbound only. It really goes along the lines of having a balance between the two. The other one is breaking down what is urgent versus what is important, right? In many of our instances as sales professionals or as entrepreneurs, everything becomes urgent. We can't afford to live like that, right? We don't live on level 100 every single time. So we need to be able to break this down to say, okay, this is important, but it's not ready, it's not due right now. However, this is urgent and has a closer timeline that I need to submit on. I always say this, especially when it comes to those revenue generating activities, it is extremely important that you focus, you put your attention there first, right? And then of course your other activities, which could be revenue generating in the long run, that's where you would want to put some of your emphasis thereafter, right? The other one that you're looking at too is you want to designate some time to tasks. Again, you'll tend to find that this has a lot to do with your time management and your structure, right? And if you're not very good at that, hopefully your managers or your team leads are, because they are the ones that's supposed to help you as well, right? So you're looking at planning your day properly. You're looking at identifying what is urgent versus what is important. You're looking at designating that time. What does that look like? That means that you can block time off. If I want to say that every day at 8 a.m. or between the hours of 8 to 4, I am spending that time prospecting. Or every afternoon after I'm out on the road, I'm going to now find a convenient place to work and I'm going to now start following up on emails. That is how you want to start designating your time to be doing certain things specifically, all right? You could also say, you know what, at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock every Tuesday or 3 o'clock every Tuesday, Lyndon is going to be doing a live. That is designating time to do things that is going to eventually bring revenue for you, or where you'll be adding value, or it's part of your sales process. And the more that you do it, it becomes part of your culture, it becomes part of your nature that you know, hey, 2 o'clock Tuesday, 3 o'clock Tuesday, we have a live to do, right? Or, excuse me, or 1 p.m., I need to stop what I'm doing because I need to get into following up on some of these emails. Because again, you don't want to miss an email, because that email could also be revenue generating, or you could just be missing off on some good commissions. And the last one, it's time that we start really using technology to help us be better at what we do, right? So always work within your CRM. I still see people with notebooks. Guys, let's figure out how we getting rid of notebooks, right? So within, if you're an independent, I would always recommend HubSpot. HubSpot is my first go-to, not because I'm a partner of HubSpot, but because of the fact that I value what HubSpot has helped me to do, and also what I've actually seen it help customers do, right? So HubSpot is going to be my first default, and I'm going to give you a little snapshot into that as well. However, you do have other things, other built-in CRMs. So if it is that you're an independent and you want to go into CRMs that are integrated with Gmail, let's say you're using Gmail outside of HubSpot, you can look at other CRMs like Zoho, you can look at Stream. So you have other alternatives other than HubSpot, but I'm just saying that HubSpot is maybe one of the more powerful ones to be using right now, right, as it relates to your work. The other one is, the other point that I want to make here too is that, again, you would have heard me say this from before, it is really, if you feel as though you're struggling, you need to find someone that's going to be able to help you. And in this instance, I want to recommend that you look at your sales managers, right? And sales managers is actually your responsibility. Like you could see, well, if based upon what your individual team members are, what they are or are not doing properly, you can now help them say, listen, wait a minute, I'm realizing that you're not having, your level of activity is not where it's supposed to be. Why? Tell me what your day is like. And you have them maybe map out their day and actually put timestamps on the day. So how much time do you spend doing this? How much time do you spend doing that? But it's your responsibility as the leader to help your team be better at what they do. It also means that you have to be a good example of that. For a period of time, I was not a good example, right, of time management, because I used to try to take on too much. here's something else that I had to do, a mistake that I was also making as a manager, is that I was sometimes taking on the job or the role of my sales reps and absorbing some of their work. We can't take work from them in the effort of helping them, to saying that that's going to help them get better. No, we have to also help them manage themselves. So again, we have to be better as it relates to how do we now support them from a time management standpoint? How do we help them? How do we support them from a task management standpoint? How do we help support them from a sales activity standpoint? Because again, all of those things are the things that's responsible or that's important for you as a leader as it relates to your team towards getting better and growing. All right, so let's always remember that, right? So we're looking at growth, we're looking at success as it relates to the roles and responsibilities. All right, the last one, I don't think the last one is one I will address today. All right, so we're not going to talk about Curtis today, right? So we're not talking about Curtis today. I'll save Curtis for maybe next week or the week after, right? So what I'm going to do now actually is that I'm actually going to show you. Let me see if I can do the switch, right? So I'm actually going to show you what it looks like as it relates to having the CRM, having a CRM help you structure your day. So we're going to switch from one screen. I'm going to move into another one. Let's see if I can get this one here. Oh, stop share. Let's go share screen. Let's go to the window. Let's go to tasks. Let's see how this looks. Right? So what you guys are looking at here is really the task screen of a HubSpot CRM. Right? And the cool thing with this is that it's broken down in a number of areas, right? So you can actually look at what are your overall tasks. So let me see if I can start from the top. So let's look at all, right? So the first thing that you will see is all of your tasks. So these are all of the tasks that I have due within the week, within the month, that kind of thing, or later on in the month, right? As you would see, some of them are coming up here for March. All right, the good thing with that, and you see some of those are red because I've missed on some of those tasks, all right? You can also, HubSpot actually now helps you break these tasks down in terms of what is due today, what has been overdue. So I'll have a few of them here that's overdue. What is coming up within the next, so I have 7 tasks that's coming up as early as tomorrow. What is it that I will have to follow up on? I've actually created a tab because you can create queues, which is called a task queue, where you can actually look at invoices. For those of us who have to go out there and use our and collect invoices for payment, you can actually now have this in here as a task, right? Then of course you can have it broken down as it relates to your meetings and of course your proposals, etc., etc., etc. And the reason why I have this particular tab is because after I have a conversation with a client, one of the things that I do next is that I will put that meeting, or I will say, okay, I need to put a follow-up. But what type of follow-up? Well, this is a follow-up for sending a proposal, or this is a follow-up on following up on the proposal that was actually sent. So you can be very specific within the CRM as to what that task is, and you can create task queues that did not come as default in HubSpot, right? If it is that we have to go one step further to the side, this is a recent feature. HubSpot actually lets you know, and this would be cool for sales professionals and sales managers, as to what is your weekly activity like, right? So what has been your calls? What have been your emails? So like my emails are up, my meetings are down, and I have one call that's actually recorded within the CRM, right? And if it's actually going to help you measure on your performance. So this is going to say what has been completed, what has not been started as yet. So you know where you are as it relates to certain things, right? Your feed will just really represent all of the interactions that you've been having, who's opened and stuff like that. I'll give a deeper example of that later on. But also, in terms of your schedule, you can actually look to see exactly as to what's happening in your calendar, all right? So that in a nutshell, guys, is that in a nutshell, guys, is what I wanted to share with you all as to how do you now go about creating a little bit more structure in your day, all right? As I said, we started off looking at what a structured workday looks like, all right? And it's really important that we as sales professionals or as business people, right, we have to pay attention. We have to pay attention to those things, because without it, you will tend to find yourself being kind of helter-skelter. You will not be as productive as you need to be. And at the end of the day, You will be losing on opportunities. You will be losing on your numbers. You may start to feel deflated. For some of us who are employed, we could lose our jobs. For some of us who are entrepreneurs, we may figure, oh, this thing not working. I don't want to do this anymore, right? But it really may not be a matter of the industry or the market or the customers. It can just be the fact that we are not having a structured work day, right? So I do hope that that was valuable to you all. As I say, I am unfortunately, any of you all who would have commented, unfortunately, I'm not seeing the comments. However, I will look at the comments after the live after it's been delivered, and then from there, what I'll then do next is that I will then now give the respective comments. So again, the goal for me in doing these things on the Tuesdays is just really to add some really strong, deep, practical value. I know that sometimes we come on and we will speak hypothetically or openly about certain things, but I really want to share with you all tips as to what needs to get done so that you can be the best that you could be. All right, guys, take care. Have a great Tuesday evening. Peace.